What's happening, y'all? This is Mike D with Black Fathers Now, where we're bringing the village to the brothers. Every couple of weeks, you can look forward to a quick inspirational message or a thought-provoking guest with knowledge and wisdom, all geared towards helping you be the best father that you can be. We're bringing the village to you. Now it's your turn to do something with what you learned. All right, y'all. Let's go. Yo, what up, fellas? We are now picking up with part 2 of my conversation with Fathers Incorporated creator and founder, Kenneth Braswell. If you did not hear part 1, literally go back to episode 166 and check out part 1. But this is a continuation of our conversation with my man, Kenneth Braswell.
Because I know that getting to perfection is in the process and the excellence in my process.
Man, I love it. And I love the analogy and the way that I would frame that pursuit of perfection, or that pursuit of 300. The 300 is your why.
Absolutely.
That's it. The 300. Yep, 300 is your why. Like, that is my why. And once you have an effective or a solidified why, then you can effectively apply. So therefore, each time I step up to the lane, I'm going to apply what I need to apply because my why is my 300, right? Mm-hmm. And so, fellas, so you think about fatherhood, our why is to leave a legacy. And the legacy was defined by the things that we mentioned earlier, you know, instilling the principles, the concepts, the value systems, the understanding of faith, all these things that in essence could tangibly lead to becoming income producing assets for your offspring or for your kids. But our why is about that legacy. So every day as we show up, like you mentioned, consistency, it's about showing up day in and day out and being consistent with that why as our North Star in regards to us operating as fathers, specifically Black fathers.
Yeah. Your why keeps you dug in. Like, your why keeps you dug in. Like, you know, I tell guys, like, listen, one of the things I ask them when they first come in, when I not as often as I used to was able to conduct them, because now I got staff conduct them because I got to keep the lights on, right? Mm-hmm. But I break off every now and then to get back into the classroom to like work with dads. And one of the things I always ask them is, give me your ultimate goal. What is it that you want as a father? Give me your ultimate goal as a father. And 99% of them says, I want to be with my children. And then I say to them, then if that's your goal, everything you do in life should be in pursuit of that. Anything that you do contrary to that is you lying to yourself.
Ooh.
Right?
That's it. That's it. Dude, that's simply it. If you fellas pay attention to what my man just said, Kenneth Braswell just dropped a gem, and I hope you caught it. You might have to, hit the rewind button and check it again. But anything you establish what it is your goal is, and anything that's not in pursuit of that goal is in direct contradiction to that goal. So either you're fighting for it or you're fighting against it. Right. Think about that in regards to your actions. If your goal is to spend time with your kids, if you're not day in and day out with your consistency doing things that lead to you spending time with your kids, you're actually doing the opposite of what your stated goal is. Think about that.
And let's give them one more. Let's give them an extender to that once they absorb that.
Okay.
Everything that you say to justify your contradiction is an excuse, and no one can help you with your excuse. If you have a reason, Fathers Incorporated can help you.
Or Black Fathers Now too. Come holler at all of us. And look, check this out.
We here to help dudes with reasons, not dudes with excuses.
Man, we're here to help dudes with reasons, not excuses. Back to what he said earlier, reasons versus excuses. I added something to it. Excuses are external. That means you're putting the blame, the onus on everything outside of yourself. Reasons are internal, meaning I'm taking responsibility. So if you've taken responsibility and you have a reason why, meaning you've taken responsibility and said, you know what, I am owning this thing, then guess what? There's help for you. On the flip side, if it's always about somebody else, if it's always about she said this, they don't want that, and everybody, woe is me, and it's always everybody else's issue, that's external. That's an excuse. I can't do nothing with excuses. My fraternity, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, I learned back in the day, excuses are monuments of nothingness. They build bridges to nowhere. People who use these tools are incompetent. They are masters of nothing. So when you, I'll never forget that one. But, but it's real, man. Listen to what Brother Kenneth just dropped there. Reasons versus excuses. If you have reasons, there's help for you. If you got excuses, you got to figure that thing out on your own.
Right. Yeah. And that's that's it. And so, we just got to, keep it real with people. Keep it 100. Whatever they're using today. I've lost on what they're using today.
They know what you're talking about. Look, if somebody don't get it, they look, it's not that, what they say, you talking fast. No, I ain't talking fast. You listening slow. They get it.
Absolutely.
They get it.
You got to be real and honest with yourself. The worst person to lie to you is you.
That's it.
And lying is never about, there's a saying that says, the tragedy in someone telling you a lie is that they didn't believe you were worth the truth.
Ooh, that's deep. The tragedy in someone telling you a lie is they didn't believe that you were worthy of the truth.
Right. So think about you lying to yourself. Right. If you're lying to yourself, what you're saying to me is, self, I don't believe anything you say. And furthermore, I don't even think you're worth the truth.
And check this out. Let's even add more to that. By not telling the truth, there's no way that you can be helped.
No way.
Think about that, fellas. Like when you go to the doctor and you say something's wrong and the doctor says, all right, well, tell me what's going on. And if you don't tell the truth, there's nothing they can do. So therefore, to that point, by not being honest with yourself, there's no way that you can help yourself. There's no way that you can honestly step out and ask the questions or seek the help that's needed if you're not honest with yourself. So start from a place of transparency. Like, I'm gonna tell you, I know the brothers had a checkered or interesting past, but I'll tell you, Mike Tyson, I love his podcast. He has one called Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson. And one of the things, and again, Mike Tyson can go left, he can go right, he can go all over the place. But one of the things that's so beautiful about how Mike Tyson communicates, he is probably the most honest communicator I have ever heard in any setting. Like, if you ask him a question, he'll tell you about all the women, all the drugs, all the whatever. He'll tell you what he did last week. And he'll tell you, look, I think he said something the other day. He said, I know what I am, or I know who I am, I know what I know, and I know what I don't, I know what I'm not. And he's just like, I'm just straight there. And no more, no less. He's just honest with himself. And the thing about that, as crazy as it may seem because of the life that he may have lived, is the fact that he's so honest that he's at a place in which he can heal. He can grow. He can evolve. And he can develop. A lot of us maybe have not lived that extreme of an existence, but even still, we're not willing to be honest with ourselves. And that's why we end up staying stuck.
And, and I think the grace that we all gave Mike, and he's my number one, man. I love that brother. I mean, I know him from Brooklyn, him from Albany. I know him from Catskills. Wow. I've watched that cat come a long way. My number two is DMX. Again,
love it.
I knew where he grew up in Yonkers. I know where he cut his teeth. And I don't know if you had a chance to see him do his Bible study the other day.
He did, man. I saw it, man. It was mind blowing, man. I loved it, dude. I loved it.
I watched it 3 or 4 times, and it's not because of the content of what he was talking about. It was the context. It was just what you just described, which he's DMX. And with all that I am, and with all of what you may not like, and what you may like, and what you may feel, when I'm in front of you, you getting DMX. And I'm going to give it to you the way DMX gives it to you. And I hope that you receive it based on that. And him and Mike, to me, are the perfect examples of sheep hear the voice of their shepherd.
Ooh,
right?
That's deep. Yes.
Everybody can't speak to the people Mike can get to. Everybody can't speak to the people DMX can get to. TD Jakes can't even get to the people that DMX and Mike can get to. Joel Austin can't get to the people that DMX and Mike can get to. Mike can't get to the people that Kanye's talking to, right?
Mm-hmm.
The thing I love about these three brothers right now in the spaces that they're in, and that is sharing their truth, is they're talking transparency to the people who will listen to them.
Yes.
Right? Because they got no motives about it. It's like, listen, you can either do or not do, but you're going to have to go down a road I've gone down, or you're going to go down a road that I'm telling you not to go there because I've been there before, right? And you're going to have to find something that's higher in you to help you guide that journey. And so it's when I just see them come out, I hate, hate is a strong word.
Mm-hmm.
Dislike. When people just are hating, just to be hating on brothers. Like, listen, why is the first thing we think about any brother doing something good has to be done because he has an ulterior motive to do something wrong?
That's real. But that's self-hate though.
Right.
Think about that. That's self-hate. Not partly. A lot of it is because, we have an issue with ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. Because we don't criticize someone who doesn't look like you the same way that we criticize someone who does look like you, who maybe comes from your background or comes from your experience or from your neighborhood. We don't criticize the same way. And a lot of that is because I can see myself in that person. And so if I see myself in that person, I'm thinking a certain way about that person because I ultimately am thinking about a certain way about myself. It's kind of like from a biblical perspective, love your neighbor as yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that most people put that into practice. So when someone hurts somebody else, that's not necessarily a scenario of the other person. That's a direct reflection of they don't love themselves. Mm-hmm. Because how can I hurt my neighbor if I love myself? Because I can see myself in some form of my neighbor, right? And so I think it all comes back to this whole notion of self-love and knowing who we are and finding the beauty, finding the joy in that. Because once we do that, and once we then are honest with ourselves and give ourselves grace, then we have the opportunity to look at a Mike Tyson or DMX or Kanye or anybody else and give them grace, in regards to how they communicate, because we're just like, hold up, I gave myself grace. I love myself and I'm supposed to love my neighbor as myself. I'm going to give them some grace as well. But then I can start to see in them the authenticity. And that's the thing that I'm seeing now. It's like, with Mike Tyson, again, folks will look at it as an entertainment thing and like, oh man, he's all this and doing that and the antics. But if you take a step back and you listen to him, I'm trying to tell you, brothers, he is one of the most authentic communicators I have ever heard. Again,
his podcast is called what?
It's called Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson.
Okay.
Yeah, Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson.
Wow.
Yeah, man, he's deep.
So one of the biggest things is, and you and I could get in this conversation. I don't want to go too deep into this because this will take us to I'm already feeling your spirit, brother. So I know this could take us into a but it's cool because we are talking to Black fathers, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
So one of the critical things for us to recognize, and I just came up with this concept the other day. I was talking to a researcher, and I'm writing this paper called The Blueprint, Reimagining the Black Father. Mm-hmm. And so, and just walk down these 8 pillars where we're going to be looking at Black fathers and really trying to put together a plan on how we move forward with elevating Black fathers through a new lens, right? Mm. And so one of the things I said to her the other day, I said, in about 6 months, there's going to be another lens through which to see Black people, right? Mm. Because one of the things about COVID-19, it is beginning to highlight these areas in our country that are adversely heavy in Black communities. You will see the real level of poverty, right? You're going to see that. You're going to see what people who didn't know what poverty was is now beginning to learn what poverty is, right? And I think there's somebody said when somebody else has a headache, when white people have a headache, black people have a migraine.
Absolutely.
Right? And so, so we're numbing through this process, right? We're used to not having all of the resources we needed. We're used to not having all of the money that we need. We're used to not. So this is part of who we are as Black people in America, of Africans in America, right? So the first lens people are going to see us through is this COVID-19 lens. The lens before that one was the crack epidemic lens, right? Where it did the same thing as this one, impacted our community in the same way. The lens before that one, Jim Crow and civil rights, changed how we saw each other. The lens before that, slavery, and how slavery changed the lens of how we look through. The lens before that, Africa, right?
Yep.
Right? And then there's another lens that we don't think about when we start thinking about Africa, and the lens before that is the Creator, and that's God, right? For Black people, this is the most critical thing to understand. When we go back through those lenses to try to self-identify ourselves, we always stop at Africa, or before we get to Africa. Oh, I'm sorry, slavery. We always stop at slavery. And the challenge is, how do we get through that lens to see Africa, right? The tragedy is those of us who are of faith, right, in the Christian faith, will oftentimes get to slavery and leapfrog Africa and go right into the Creator. And we still ignore our Africanness in the culture of our faith, right? And so we never, even in our full faith in God, understand our true relevance in the fact that we are African, right? And that we knew God before we came to this country. Like, people will tell you that Black people ain't learned about Christianity until the slave owner told us about the Bible. Africans were part and parcel of who were the translators of the Bible in the first place. It just got distorted coming down through the years. Africa always knew about Jesus and God.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Always knew about Jesus and God. And that's when you hear about the languages and so, not to get too much into deep.
It's okay. It's go. We're good. Let's go. I'm with it.
Okay. Speaking in tongues means different languages. Africa has the most languages of any continent in the world. They were talking about speaking in tongues in different languages, and the ability and the necessity of anyone who speaks in tongues also had to translate, right? Which means that there was a translation. A translation occurred. And so when we get back to us here, and we have to continue to look through all of these lenses to self-identify, what I'm saying here in this conversation is you cannot stop at slavery.
Oh, man.
You gotta get through that lens and get to Africa. Even if you're Christian, you got to see Christianity through Africa, not around it.
Man, fellas, I hope y'all are paying attention to what he's saying. He's really going deep, but I want you to stop and process what he's saying. A lot of times we believe that our lineage was birthed in the hull of a slave ship. A lot of us literally feel that our lineage was birthed in the hull of a slave ship. That's where Black people began. But we forget there was a whole civilization, multiple civilizations prior to the transatlantic slave trade. And what I'll even say is what's interesting, in 2016, my wife and I went to Tanzania, right? So we went to East Africa. We went to Zanzibar. We sat in slave holding cells that were from the Arab slave trade, which predated the transatlantic slave trade by about 400 years. That was from the 1200s to like the 1800s. Right. A lot of what was learned from the transatlantic slave trade was learned from the Arab slave trade. So again, we hyper focus on the transatlantic, but we don't even realize the transatlantic is just specific to us because that's our genetic lineage, so to speak, for a lot of us. But the reality is that was not the first time that this happened. And so you have to look back to prior to that, but then you got to look at the civilizations that were already in place prior to European colonization, prior to the Arab slave trade. You go back to ancient Egypt. And I'll tell you, even another part to this is interesting. Back in October, before all of this stuff happened, we actually went to Rome, right? So we actually did all the Roman tours and the Colosseums and this and that. And what we were learning about the ancient Roman Empire was that included all of North Africa, right? And so in the Colosseum tour, they had all these different tigers and lions and all that stuff coming in to fight. And so we were asking, like, where do they get them from? And they said that the part of the Roman Empire included all of North Africa. And at the time, you could find lions and tigers and giraffes all across North Africa. But because they captured so many for these Colosseum fights and all of that, they in essence caused these animals to become extinct in Northern Africa. So that's why now you can only find these animals in like sub-Saharan Africa, because back during the day, that's what was happening. So what I'm saying is part of Northern Africa was all infused into the Roman Empire, which we always hear about the Roman this and Constantine that, but a lot of their empire included North Africa, the North African civilizations, the Egyptian people, the people of Kush. I mean, then you start getting it. I mean, we can go super, super deep, and then just the birthplace of civilization. I mean, that's we can get into that. And so to that point, fellas, I want you to realize that if we look at history and we bypass Africa, we're bypassing, in essence, the core of who we are.
Right. And, and why is this so important? What are you teaching your kids? Like, who's teaching your kids? That's always the most important thing a Black man can ask about his children is, who's teaching my children? Black people, period, not just Black men, but who's teaching my children? And so you hear people say children should be taught at home. You're absolutely right. Children should be taught education at home, at school, but they should be taught life at home. Being taught at school doesn't necessarily make a child ready for life, right? And so if you're shirking on your responsibility to educate your children about life, then how do you expect them to live in this world, right? And the way that you give them the tool that you give them to understand their ability to be the best they can possibly be is through the lens of Africa, not the lens of slavery. So if you continue to let schools teach your children, they're always going to frame their existence through slavery. There's an old proverb that says, if you continue to let the hunter tell the story, write the story, the lion story will never be told.
The lion story will never be told. But I'll tell you though, you got a couple lions on this podcast right now, and that's the whole premise of what we're doing. We're here telling the stories now. And so to that point, you created Fathers Incorporated, right? And so you're here helping to facilitate these stories being told through a lot of the work, through the initiatives, and through all the things that you all are doing. And you're headquartered in Atlanta, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes. So tell the brothers a little bit about, Fathers Incorporated, how it got started, but then kind of jump into some of the initiatives that you all currently have going on, my brother.
So, we started in 2004, and it birthed for me, like many not-for-profits, birth where people are going through the same particular issue to which they become an advocate for, right? And so most people who run homeless not-for-profits have been homeless. Most people who run substance abuse not-for-profits have engaged in substance abuse. For me, my issue was fatherhood, right? My issue was struggling with the mother of my youngest child in court. And after a breakup of our relationship and me, beginning to see that this issue of fatherhood was much more serious than I thought it was, right? When I ended up in court. And I had already been doing community service work. I've already been working with the Urban League, the NAACP. I was already in the not-for-profit game. But when I began to go through those struggles with her, I began to kind of see this nuance of what fathers were going through, and didn't come to that epiphany in terms of doing Fathers Incorporated right off of that. But it was this kind of bad relationship that I had that, I believe at the time was life destroying, so much so that I wanted to take my own life. And I sat on the couch and I prayed for God to give me a reason for getting off the couch. And he whispered to me, speak to the hearts of men. And so did not know what that meant, did not know what to do with that, because I was into radio, I was doing entertainment, I was doing communication, I was doing a bunch of other different things in life. And got up and did what I typically do, which was I love to write, particularly when I'm hurt. I write the best when I'm hurt. I'm like Mary J. Like when when I'm hurt, I'm gonna make a platinum album. And so I sat down and wrote, and about 7 hours later, I had a 15-page perspective of Fathers Incorporated. It had no idea of the field, no idea of the work, no idea of anybody in it, anything. I just was sitting there creating this organization that I believe would help fathers through the issues that they were going through along the spectrum of custody, visitation, and child support. And I branched out to start doing that in New York, and quickly realized that I could not help enough men fast enough. And decided very quickly to move from a direct service agency to a professional development and capacity building agency, where I would go in and I would train on the ground not-for-profits, working specifically with men. And so began to do that work, caught the attention of the then commissioner of the Office of Temporary Disability Assistance, which is New York State's public assistance agency, Robert Dorr. Did a presentation in a workshop that he was in, had no idea he was in it. He called me a couple of days later to come and meet with him. I was applying for a contract that HHS was putting around fatherhood. And it needed a match. It needed a $1 million match. And so I went up to meet with him to see if he would give me the $1 million match. And he says, listen, I got this money from the legislature. Would love for you to come on board and run the Fatherhood Initiative for the state of New York. We got $3 million from the legislature. We don't know what to do with this money. We don't know what to do with it. And he said, I heard you the other day. And I was like, he said, that's my guy right there. That's my guy. And my attitude at the time was, man, I had just quit my job with the state. I ain't trying to work for the man. I'm trying to do my own thing now. I was like, listen, I just want the match, blah, blah, blah. He said, think about it. So came back to my then girlfriend, and I said, I went up there and met with Robin, and he tried to give me a job. I was like, ain't that like white people? Every time you try to come in, they want to give you a job. So she said, what was the job? So I told her what it was. And then she got to the real question, right? Which was, how much was the job? How much was he offering? And so I told her how much he offered, and she goes, what? I said, yeah, he tried to offer, I think it was like 70. He's like, he tried to offer me $70,000. She's like, Negro. In other words, you ain't making nothing right now. You about to walk away from a table that's giving, you ain't got no benefits. You ain't got no income coming in. You ain't got nothing. And you going to walk away because you don't want to work for the man. And then finally she was like, you know what? Then she got back to her authentic self. Her authentic self said, what's God saying to you? Pray about it. Whatever you decide, I'm good with it. We had already made leaps of faith before that anyway. So I took the job, came up. He says, listen, he says, the slate is yours. Build what you think you can build. We got this money. We got another pot of money on here for evaluation and all this. And we put the money out. We had 5 different organizations around the state of New York. We had a $1.2 million comprehensive evaluation from the Urban Institute. We did it for like 5 years, and about coming up on like 4.5 years, God was like, time is up. It's time to get back to Fathers Incorporated, because I had already created. He's like, the only reason you was here was this was an incubator for you to learn the governmental space.
Wow.
Right? And I went in and came in, and I gave Scott Cade, he was the director of child support, because my work was within New York State child support enforcement. And I gave him my notice, and he goes, what's this? And I was like, I'm out. And he's like, where are you going? I'm like, I'm done. Everybody thought I was going places. Everybody thought I got other jobs at other places. I'm like, nah, this is it. I'm done. I'm out of here. So I left there. Fast forward, I get this phone call from, I run into Patrick Patterson in San Francisco.
Okay.
Patrick comes up to me at a fatherhood conference. He's like, "Yo, Ken, what's up, man?" He's like, and I didn't know him at the time. He's like, "Listen, what you up to?" He's like, "Everybody keeps asking, like, what is Kenny gonna do? Where is he at?" And I'm like, "But my boss wants to talk to you, right? Because there's this contract coming up, and they want to talk to you." I'm like, "All right." So I came back home. They flew me down to Virginia, and they wanted me to apply for the National Responsible Fatherhood Clearinghouse.
Okay.
So the irony in that is the contract that I was going after when I went to New York State was that particular contract.
Wow.
Right. And so, but what I learned was that it was a contract, not a grant. And so here's another lesson for the brothers out there that's trying to get government money. First of all, don't run away or turn down government money. Government can't change who you are, can't make you do what you don't want to do. There's a condition on every dollar you get. If I give you $5, I want outcomes. And so if somebody gives you $1 million, they're supposed to have outcomes. So don't run away from government money because they have an outcome. Every dollar has a condition. That's just a sidebar. And so when I learned it was a contract, because contracts, you got to have a different level of organization. You have to have capital in place and all. It's like being a contractor of someone's home. You got to have capital already in place to buy materials, to hire people, to get them moving so that you can get paid on the back end. Grant, they give you the money up front. You give them the deliverables and you just go and deliver it. It's your money. And so I was like, I ain't got that kind of capacity. I'm running my organization out the basement of my house. Like I'm probably cruising right now on a $15,000 to $25,000 a year organization. That's all we had. And so I turned it down. They went and found another organization. That organization got 1 week until it was due. They jumped out. And then I went and found another organization, brought them to the table. We started working with them. 3 days out from it being due, they jumped out. So there was no one left, and they needed a national fatherhood organization to apply for this grant. Contract. You cannot have this contract unless you are a nationally known 501c3 organization. And that were. So finally, I walked in and I was scared out of my mind. I was like, I don't have it. And this woman, Jeanette Harrod, she called me and she said, "Kenny," she says, "I will not let you fail."
Wow.
And I said, "What?" She says, "I will not let you fail." I said, okay. I went home, told my wife. Wife said the same thing she always say, pray about it. Prayed about it. Went down to Virginia, 3 days. We knocked this thing out. The bid actually got to where it was supposed to be 5 minutes before it was due. The woman got stuck in a car in D.C. and she had to get out the car and jump in a cab down the block in order to get around something that was going on to get to the building.
Wow.
Got in 5 minutes before it got there. Fast forward, my wife and I are in Bible study. September 28th, 2010. And my phone rings and I have it on my lap and I see it's a 202 number and I just hang it up. And then this was before you had this Blackberries, and they came up and they said, "Congratulations, you won. But we need to talk to you immediately because we have to sign the contracts before midnight because it's due." And I had to leave the church, and it said, "You won the contract." And at the time, it was worth $7.3 million.
Wow.
That's the first time we won the contract. Got it, made it happen, grew. Second time came around again. We applied, we bid for it again the second time, got it the second time. Second time was $13.2 million. That was the second time. That was 2000. That's 2017. Third time it came around again in 2018. 2018. We bid for it again, got it again. That time it was $19 million.
Wow.
And so, over the course of 10 years, we've managed close to $60 million for the federal government in fatherhood programs. And so that's just kind of been, and over those years, what that has allowed me to do is have an infrastructure for my organization to provide a service for the federal government in providing services for fathers, but still build the core of what Fathers Incorporated was supposed to be, right? To build curriculums and write programs and do campaigns and be able to talk to you without having to worry about who's listening to me, to be on my own time, to be on my own time, all of those kinds of things. So here we are now in 2020, we're smack dab in the middle of that grant contract, and we have several other contracts here in Atlanta where we're doing fatherhood work for Center for Black Women's Wellness and for Clayton County Health Center. We're getting ready to sign a contract with the Georgia Department of Child Support, and we're running all these programs. And we're actually thinking about applying for some bigger grants to do some more on the ground direct service stuff here in Atlanta. And so we've just evolved, right? And so we started out this agency that wanted to do some great work for a couple of dads in Albany, New York, and it turned out to be this international organization, national organization that's providing services and creating the environment, really had a strong hand in shaping the environment that has made the conversation of fatherhood a little more palatable for everyone else, right? And so because when I got in the game, I couldn't talk to nobody about fatherhood. Everybody wanted to know what? And what about the safety of women? Like every conversation I started with fatherhood had to start with how I was going to keep dads from being abusers. That was the first 4 years of my fatherhood life, trying to explain to them that this fatherhood work was not about putting women in unsafe spaces, right? That we were simply trying to strengthen families through stronger fathers. And so, but now we sit here today, and even the first iteration of the federal grants, one of the stipulation in those grants is that they had to hire a DV person to run domestic violence programs in those fatherhood grants in the early days. And then the second iteration, that changed, that disappeared, and then they put child support person in and workforce development person in. And then in the next iteration, that disappeared, and it became about hard skills. It was how would you do hard skill work for fathers to make sure that they not only became employed, but became educated, given services so that they could be better fathers. And so it has, and I believe that we've had a strong hand in evolving the atmosphere so that fatherhood now is not about trying to get an abusing man into the life of his into the lives of the mothers of his children to take care of his child. Now, we've come a long way. We still got a long way to go, evident by the fact that individuals who have child support arrears right now will not receive a stimulus check. Individuals with child support arrears will probably have their unemployment checks garnered. And so it's still on the premise that most of these dads that are not paying their child support are deadbeat dads, right? Which is nothing can be further from the truth. Many of these dads have annual incomes of $10,000 and less. These are not rich dads dodging child support. These are poor dads trying to figure out how to survive, given that they have multiple children and have to maintain not only their own life, but they have to maintain the life of their children and do it with all of the other systematic things that are taking place in society right now. And so that's my kind of 10 to 15 minute long stretch of what we're doing. And we just continue to be out here and grinding this work in areas that we know is most needed for systematic change, right? And so where is child support, where we have to look at policies to make sure that, that they're not just, grinding guys out just for the sake of being able to say that they're providing a service for moms. In fact, they're percentage-wise, they're now the growth of custodial parents being paid child support now are fathers. There are more single fathers that have custody of their children now than ever. That number continues to grow. Pew Research is saying that African-American fathers are the most engaged fathers in the life of their children of any other cohort in their country. So all of the myths are being broken, right? And all of the issues that society has placed on fathers is beginning to dilute a little bit, but not enough that is penetrating policy. And so at some point, someone's got to get in the mix of policy to begin to start breaking that animal up, because that animal is probably the biggest culprit of what's keeping most people who look like you and I in poverty.
Man, you know what? That you said so much there, but the last thing you mentioned about policy is interesting. I had a brother that I interviewed, it's probably about 6-7 months ago, and he's a divorce attorney. And one of the things that he highlighted in his conversation was that legally, the law does not distinguish about gender, right? Like the law has nothing listed that distinguishes policy or whatnot based on gender. So what you're talking about is still based on perception.
Absolutely.
So the way the law is written, it shouldn't matter whether it's the father, the mother, or whatever. But the reality is, it's the perception that we have to contend with.
So here's the strength in the gender argument.
Okay.
And what keeps us locked down. This is so we have these 5 foundational truths that we do in our fatherhood classes. And even in the classes, we have this class called Standing in the Gap, Single Mothers Raising Boys. And I start out that class with these same 5 foundational issues. And that means that you have to agree to all 5 of these things in order to grow in the space that I'm trying to grow you in, whether you're a mom or a dad. And we don't go forward past those. Either we go forward, I have 100% of the hands up, or there's no need for you to stay here if you can't agree for these, because these are the most logical, sensible things that any individual should be able. And I won't go through all 5, but I'll tell you the big number one. Big number one. For every single mom in this country, there's a single dad. Listen to this. For every single mom in this country, there is a single dad. Here's why. The term single mom doesn't denote parenting status. It denotes marital status. So if it only denotes that she is single, then there's got to be another parent who's also single. Who is that? Dad. Wow. So for every single mom, there is a single dad. The U.S. Census doesn't even count single mothers, right? They count female-headed households. But just because a household is led by a female no more means that a man is not there than a male-headed household means that there's no woman there. So the strength in the term single moms has been strengthened by a societal narrative that leads people to believe that a single mother has a dad who's abandoned her. That's why the angst is so high when they use that term, because how dare you abandon your children and this mom? That's a lie. It's not the truth.
Wow.
Right? And so fatherless, right, is a term that I said before, there's not very many terms I hate, but this one is one I hate. Fatherless, right? This is the second foundational truth. 100% of all children have a father. 100% of every child has a father. Whether they were born in a test tube, whether they were adopted, whether they came from another country, whatever the case may be, 100% of every walking being on this earth
has a father,
a biological mother and a biological father. The question is never if he exists. The question is where he exists. Because if I get you to question if he exists, it convinces you to deny his existence.
That's deep. That's deep.
But if I force you to understand that he's here and it's about where he is, then I force you to be accountable to ask where he is. Right? And so if I'm working with moms, part of the social work that I have to do in working with moms is asking her, where is dad? 90% of the time she knows where he is, and he's not a deadbeat. But if we never ask and we just convince her and we convince society that, don't fall for the banana in the tailpipe, right?
Look, hold on. Now look, if you didn't catch that banana in the tailpipe reference, right. Okay, a Beverly Hills cop ain't gonna be no more bananas in the tailpipe. Come on. If you don't catch that, we got another conversation that we need to have with you. Because you done lost your card. Okay, go ahead.
Go on, we gonna took that joint.
We took that thing.
Right. There was my other references. These are it was in Star Wars. It was when Han Solo. It was when Luke and I forgot his master's name, and he said, "These are not the droids you're looking for." Remember that? That's how we get caught up.
That's it. But it's real though.
These are not the droids you're looking for. And he's like, all right, go ahead on by. So we gotta be like real careful about language.
Yes.
Because we use very detrimental language in our culture. And we allow systems to give strength to language that is harmful to our very existence. And more importantly, they convince our women that that's truth. And it even gives them a tool to hang on, because the stronger the notion is that the term single mom means that this father has abandoned me and my child, the more sympathy I'm going to get from the general public.
Perception.
That's
you, and I think, and that's why I so am appreciative of the work that you're doing and the things that you're leading, the initiatives, because we need to change perceptions, right? Mm-hmm. Perceptions end up becoming reality. If you say something over and over and over and over and over again, eventually you're going to believe that thing, right? Mm-hmm. And so to that point, if we keep perpetuating a particular narrative over and over and over and over, eventually you start to think that that's truth. It's not truth, but that's just how your mind works, because you've heard it a million times. You start to think that it's truth. And so that goes back to the notion of, as we create things, as we do interviews like this, as we create media, as we use language, as we communicate, we need to be very mindful. They say sticks and stones won't break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Words may never physically hurt you, but they can emotionally, mentally, spiritually, they can get to the core of who you are and be extremely detrimental, not necessarily for you personally, but for society or for someone else. Be mindful of that. Those words can shape perceptions. Those things can shape what ultimately grows into reality, which then makes it so that we can't start from a level playing field. You have to get out of a hole first before you can even start working on the issue at hand. So I appreciate it.
My brother Ivy Tolson has a book, and I don't have it near me because I'm going to mess up. I'm going to jack up. It's called No BS. You got to interview Ivy Tolson. I'm going to send you
hook it up.
Email.
Yeah, hook me up.
At our university, Dr. Tolson was the director over all the HBCUs under the Obama administration. He's in D.C., great brother. But he just wrote a book about 9 months ago called No BS. And BS stands for bad stats. The subtitle of his book, which is why I'm looking around to see if I have, because I usually have it close to me. And I don't want to jack it up, and I know exactly where it is.
Okay.
Look at that. Keep it close.
There it is.
So here's the subtitle. Black people, let me read this slow because y'all need to hear this.
Okay.
Black people need people who believe in Black people enough not to believe every bad thing you hear about Black people.
Read that one more time, dude.
Read that one more time. Black people need people who believe in black people enough not to believe every bad thing they hear about black people.
Fellas. Oh, Lord. Yeah, please hook that up. Shoot me his information because I got to have that brother on, because that in itself, that goes back to what we were talking about in regards to when we look in the mirror, the self-love, right? The whole concept of loving your neighbor as yourself. Okay, if you don't love your neighbor, then that obviously means that you probably don't love yourself, right? If you believe everything negative that comes out about us, you honestly probably don't love yourself, right?
Right, absolutely. That's why it bothered me a little bit when COVID-19 started to kind of really ramp up. Like, everybody was just like, how come they're not saying how bad this is impacting black communities? I'm like, you have to know that answer already.
Come on.
So what's the goal here? Is the goal to know, or the goal to do something about it once you find out? And what we've seen is that the goal was just to know, because no one has done anything to do anything about it, specifically in black communities, except for have more conversations about how bad we're doing.
But hold on, check this out though. This is also this concept of waiting for Superman, right?
Absolutely.
Because the other part to it is the moment that we can look in the mirror, the moment that we can love ourselves, the moment that we can realize how capable we are of the greatness that's there. And maybe it's not personally in you, but if you ain't got it, I know somebody. I can call Kenneth. Kenneth knows somebody. And if Kenneth ain't got it, Kenneth knows somebody. And if Kenneth doesn't, if that person doesn't know, he knows somebody. What I'm saying is, we're waiting on Superman and we're waiting for the outside to save us. But the reality is that's never going to happen. And if we rely on that, then what will end up happening is we'll continue to have conversations and, situations about what's going on, but there will be no solutions. The only solutions that we're going to find are solutions that we are going to find.
Absolutely. The cavalry is not coming.
It's not.
Calvary, you, my brother Sean Dove said,
yes,
you are the iconic leader that you've been waiting for.
You are. Fellas, I hope you hear that. And, Sean's been on the podcast as well. Actually, Sean was the link between connecting up. He was the one that said, I need to holler at you and need to have you on the podcast. But listen to that. You are
the iconic leader you've been waiting for.
Come on.
Right, what you gonna do? And then the last thing, because we don't want to give
too
many.
We got to do it. We'll do this again. We'll have to do this again.
This one is important, particularly since we are talking to black fathers, and that particularly because we know that sisters are listening. I love my sisters. I absolutely adore my sisters. So much so, my mother was a sister. And so was my grandmother. And so was the grandmother before her. And so are my daughters. And so are my aunties, right? All sisters. I would never do anything as a black man to dishonor the women in the legacy of my family, right? But at the same time, I understand how society has been biased to women in this country. And at the same time, been biased to black men in this country. The last thing I'm going to involve myself in is to distinguish who's been treated the worst amongst us, right? Because we see us doing that, right? How come we not talking about black boys? How come we not talking about black girls? How come we not talking about black women? How come we not talking about black men? Well, we should be talking about black women because black women XXX. Well, we should be talking about black men because XXXX, right? And so we get into this entanglement of trying to figure out amongst us who's been done the worst, right? Which doesn't allow us to get to the best of who we are. And so you can follow trends and you can understand as a black man and support movements like Black Lives Matter, right? Understanding that all lives matter. But right now I'm focused on Black Lives Matter because we're the ones showing up in the emergency room more than the other lives. And until you realize that my life matters, I can't recognize anybody else's life because it's self-preservation first, right? On the flip hand side of it, I can also understand Me Too, right? Because Me Too means that for women, they believe that they've been lost and left behind in the economic prosperity of this country and other spaces as a result of Me Too. But when Black women and Black men get into this conversation and debate around Me Too, what is lost in that conversation is us too. We didn't come on this boat alone. It wasn't a women's slave boat. There wasn't a man's slave boat, and there wasn't a children's slave boat. It's a Black people's slave boat. And we all got treated horribly from day one to day now. And now is not the time to divide our commonality by the horrors of our differences.
Fellas, hold up. Yeah, fellas. Fellas, today is not the day to divide ourselves on differences. We need to look at what's common. Look, this is a collective. I mean, I really can't add much else to what Kenneth just said. Just push pause and hit that 15-second repeat thing to hear it over. That's a mic drop. Fellas, I mean, there's really nothing left for me to say here or ask from you aside from how can brothers check out what you have going on with Fathers Incorporated? How can they follow you? Social media? Is there anything specific that you have going on that you like us to pay attention to?
Yeah, the easiest thing for me is, I heard someone say the other day, Google is who it says you are. You are who Google says you are, right? And so if you type in my name and you type Fathers Incorporated, I pop up all over the place for 23 pages deep. You're going to find out everything that I've done and all of those kinds of things. But there is one thing that we're involved in right now that I want to encourage you to do if you are Black in America. And that is to fill out your 2020 U.S. Census form. That's what this thing is about. Black dads count, right? Black dads count. And the reason that we count is because African-American families in this country are one of the hardest to count communities in this country for a lot of different reasons. But within the African-American community, Black men are the hardest community to count, right? And so, but here's the problem. When you don't fill out your census form, you're leaving federal dollars on the table that could come to your community in resources to help the very things we're struggling with. So when you don't fill out the form, every individual is leaving on average $2,700 to $3,500 a year on the table. Right? That doesn't come to your community because if you're not counted, no one knows you're there.
Well, hold on. Let's make this thing tangible because then you're gonna have some naysayers. Well, they not sending me no $2,700 or $3,000 check. How's it benefiting me? Why I need to do it? Or you probably gonna have some of this other side of, well, I don't want what's the government gonna do? They're gonna come and they're gonna knock on my door and take something from me or
hold those 2 points. Hold those 2 points right there.
Bring it back to me.
Let me
knock them out.
Out the park.
Knock them out. Knock them out.
So a white person can say the same thing you just said, right? That money not coming into my pocket. Why am I going to fill out the census if it's not coming to my pocket? Because the money is coming to their community and they know where the control mechanism is once that money comes to their community, which is why they're at school board meeting.
Wow.
Which is why they're engaged in education, which is why they're at the city council meetings, because they know the money is coming in and they're diverting the money as it gets there to where they believe helps their causes. And because we're not at the table when that money is funneling through, that money goes wherever somebody believes that money should go. So it's not just enough to go out and fill out the census. It's then dependent upon you to go into your community and activate.
Woo! So
right? That's the first one. Oh, let me knock the second one. Let me knock the second one out. Second one. If you believe for 1 minute government doesn't know where you are and what you're doing at any given time in this country, you are a lost soul. If you carry a cell phone, or you expose yourself in the public, someone knows where you are, where you going, and when you're coming back. There's a camera on every corner. Your cell phone is clocked, right? Every time you use your debit card, they know where you are. The notion that you think you're living in complete secrecy to the rest of the country is laughable, right? Let me hurt somebody right now. So I'm gonna ask you a question. Whether you have Siri, Bixby, Google, or Alexa, right? What's the condition for any of them to work?
You have to give them access.
Nope.
Okay. What's
the condition? The condition for any of them to work is they have to be listening all the time.
Wow.
Alexa doesn't know when you're going to see. I just said it. Alexa doesn't know when you're going to say Alexa. She has to be ready for when you say it.
Wow.
So your phone, your computer, anything that has a speaker that allows your voice to go into it is being listened to, something to respond to you. Right? Which means
something's being captured. Yeah.
Something's being captured.
Wow.
Don't let the myths keep you from civically engaging, because that is the trick of the devil. The trick of the devil is to paranoid you so that you don't engage, right? And in addition, from a historical perspective, the census is attached to the 3/5 commission, the 3/5 rule that says you're only worth 3/5 of an individual. The 3/5 rule was designed to reduce the amount of taxable income that a slave owner would have to pay taxes on. Absolutely. As a result of the slaves they owned, their property. That wasn't about black people. That was the 3/5 that was in there. It wasn't about black people. It was about money.
Taxes. Yep.
Reduce their value and you will reduce their taxes. And now that rule is no longer in play, the stigmatism of it still exists in the same way that the Willie Lynch letter remains relevant. That is, if we teach them to undervalue themselves, they will always do it without our stimulation. So not to engage in the census, not to vote, is in line with what the 3/5 rule was designed for, and that is to keep you undervalued, underneeded, and non-existent.
Fellas,
so stop playing. Fill out the form.
Stop playing. And then how long do we have to fill out the census form? How long are they collecting it?
They fill it out. It's out until like August 14th, going well into August. It's my2020census.gov. It takes 7 minutes to fill out. 7 minutes. And so, man.
No excuses.
No excuses. Listen. And this is where I get back on my hard horse for our people. I hate when people tell me that black people don't have the attention span to listen to anything on social media for more than a minute and a half. That is BS. If you can binge YouTube for the better part of your day, you can stop and listen to Black Fathers Now for 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever to feed your soul and your mind, as opposed to the other mindless stuff that you are listening to and watching on social media. I had to put on my page the other day, listen, don't send me no damn challenges.
That's right.
If you want to challenge somebody to do something, challenge them to read a book.
That's it.
Challenge them to go take some time out with their family. Challenge them to do something productive. Don't rest on me that because we're in the middle of this health crisis that I need a mental release. I don't need a mental release, right? As long as I adhere to the rules. Stay in the damn house.
That's it.
Stay in the damn house. That's it. Once I do that, all other pressures are off of me. Right? Can't nobody do nothing. They can't kick me out of my house. They can't do it. Yeah, you got to eat, but be safe when you go and do what you need to do. But I'm not under no mental stress because I've been in the house for the last 30 days. I'm with my wife that I love and with my child that I love. I got Facebook. I'm talking to my man Mike in whatever city he's in.
Knoxville, Tennessee. Yep.
Knoxville, Tennessee. I get my family on Zoom. I'm still conducting my classes. I'm still socially interacting. I'm just not touching nobody. And I'm okay with that because I'm not a touchy-feely person anyway. Right? I love it. And so this notion that we can't focus on things that are relevant to our people is not about our inability to be attentive to things. It's about our inability to prioritize our needs in a way that they need to be prioritized. That's our problem. So YouTube becomes higher on your priority table than filling out the census. Binge watching Ozark, Power, or any other thing that you're binge watching is more important than sitting down at the table for 15 minutes helping your child go through their homework.
Priorities.
If you can FaceTime your boy, you can FaceTime your kids.
Woo! You know, that's the mic drop. If you can FaceTime your boy, you can FaceTime your kids. Fellas, priorities. Now, we're going to have to do a round 2 at some point because I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. And, you know, I'm actually frustrated that it took this long for it to happen because I'm like, yo, this is some heat.
Here's what I'm waiting for, Mike. I can't wait. I'm seeing how you're going to chop this up. That's what I'm thinking. I know you're going to. That's what I'm gonna wait for.
Man, look at here. Look, this thing is going out. Like, this thing is gonna come out I might have to chop a little, but I don't even think I'm gonna have to chop that much because this thing was loaded with all kind of good stuff, man. And brothers, I hope y'all take heed to everything Ken dropped, man. And make sure to check out Fathers Incorporated. Like you said, if you Google Fathers Incorporated and Kenneth Braswell, or go to the website, it's fathersincorporated.org, right?
.com.
Yeah, fathersincorporated.com. If you just Google Black Dads Count, you'll see the initiative. I mean, you'll just see all the stuff that they have going on. Get involved, get engaged, reach out to the brother, man. Let him know you heard about him on Black Fathers Now, because his story is powerful, man. I mean, just the concept of he didn't know where he was going. He didn't know what he was doing, but the Lord spoke to him and said, Fathers Incorporated, speak to the heart of fathers. That was spoken to him when he was in New York. But what was powerful about it was it didn't come into existence immediately, right? But then I was listening to how this thing kind of popped. And, you know, he had somebody say that I will not let you fail. And then consistently, his lady said, pray about it. And then you look at it now and the tens of millions of dollars and impact that they've been at the helm of ushering in to help fathers double down on who they authentically are and become the men that they're supposed to be. That's a powerful story and a powerful testimony. So, fellas, if Kenneth Braswell can do it and this brother's special, you're special and you can do it as well. But you're going to do it in your own light, in your own lane. So pay attention to this story, take action. But then, like you mentioned at the very end, prioritize what's important. And if we do that, we're good.
Yeah. At the end of the day, bro, I'm just a servant. At the end of the day, I'm just a servant. Trying to do God's will for my life and trying to make sure that the dash between the dates on my tombstone means something. Fellas,
if that don't say nothing to you, I don't think anything will. Man, let's thank my man Kenneth Braswell for coming and checking us out and hanging out with us on Black Fathers Now. Make sure to visit fathersincorporated.com. Just Google Kenneth Braswell and Fathers Incorporated in the 23 pages that are going to pop up on Google. Just check your boy out, right? Make sure to get out and vote this fall for sure. Definitely make sure to fill out the census. Black Dads Count is really doing a good job helping to usher in that initiative with us. As always, make sure to follow Black Fathers Now on all the social media platforms. Visit blackfathersnow.com. Subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe, leave comments, and share. This conversation is really going to help somebody. And fellas, until next time, y'all be blessed, well, and wise. And I'll holler at you. Peace. Yo, fellas, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And always visit blackfathersnow.com as well as follow Black Fathers Now on virtually every social media platform you can think of. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Just follow us and engage with us, man. Look forward to hearing from you. And I guess until next time, I'll holler at you. Peace.